It is tax letter season or tax prep letter season. This is something that's become very popular with financial advisors. It's a great way to help your clients with a very critical part of their financial lives. Namely, we have to file tax returns every year, and it's for many people scary and complicated. So it's a way for us to help them. And at the same time, it's a way for us to remind our clients about all the incredible tax planning that we did for them in the previous year. I'll show you how to prepare these in Holistiplan. The hard part about sending a letter out or some document out to all your clients, especially when it's something that's customized and different for every client, is we have to find systems, software, processes to make sure we can send those things, generate those and send them in a scalable way. First, let's take a look at what a tax letter is. But basically, it's a way for us to describe any reportable events that happen during the year, and in addition to some documents. So for example, if at the top of on the right-hand side here, if I manage these accounts and I want to tell the client, like, make sure you get the Form 1099s for these accounts that we manage, or the Schedule K1s for these accounts we manage, that's helpful. Some advisors actually put all tax documents in here. I've seen some advisors even say, hey, make sure to wait till you get the W-2 for these two jobs. That's kind of a choice that different financial advisors have as far as like how much are you going to guide clients on what to include in this letter or not in terms of tax documents they'll receive. Cost basis. It used to be that it was harder to get cost basis. The custodians didn't have to track that the way they do now, but still there's sometimes assets that are not going to show up on a custodian's statement. A large like real estate asset, or even something like a alternative asset, that's going to show up in a place where if we don't tell the tax preparer what the cost basis is, they may not know. It may add extra cycles to your client. You're helping your client go faster and be more accurate when they file their tax return. And then things like, these sections at the bottom, events that are reportable. So I have some examples here. 60-day rollover, HSA contribution. Here's one that's actually not reportable, but a grant from a donor advised fund. I've seen cases where clients will try to report a donation from a donor advised fund on Schedule A, for example. And that's a mistake. They already got credit for that donation when they put money in the donor advised fund. And so we as the advisor can help clients kind of understand some of the complexities of how these different planning tools work. All this is optional though. So I'll scroll down on the left-hand side here. Now I'll get into like how we create these tax letters. Basically what you do is you start at a household, and then you'll say, I'm going to create a 2025 letter for this household. And basically what happens is you get a blank slate, and what I'm doing is I add these sections. And so like at the bottom, there's a bullpen here. Let's do an example like, I don't know, we did a 529 plan contribution. I clicked that out of this bullpen area at the bottom. And then on the right-hand side, 529 plan contributions, it gives a little bit of explanation to the client on what it is. And then we can add the information on when it happened, 2025, Sally's 529. Whoops. And we put $10,000 in it. And now it shows up on the report. There's a lot you can do to configure this. Configurable headers, configurable disclaimers, footers. You can also favorite these sections at the bottom. So if you find yourself always adding something about Roth conversion, if you find yourself always adding something about accrued interest on bonds or whatever it is, you can favorite sections, and then you can automatically, with one click of the button, promote them all to the letter. There's also different flavors to the letter. This was something that advisors asked us for. At present, what's on screen is a letter that kind of explains in great detail why we've included this section. So for example, this piece about a grant from a donor advised fund. We give a whole bunch of information about, don't put that on Schedule A, don't. But if you're sending this letter directly to a tax preparer, people ask for a way to just say, look, the tax preparer doesn't need all that explanation. Just send them a note that says donations were made from this donor advised fund, and they know how to handle that as they prepare the taxes. So that's a choice. Some advisors use that, some advisors don't. But what you end up with at the end is this letter, this formatted letter. There's your logo up top. There's a header that's of your choosing. These are all the sections that you've kind of promoted from that bullpen of possible sections, and we filled in the relevant information that needs to be in the letter. It's well formatted, and then we can send that out to our clients. The next piece of the puzzle is, how do we orchestrate this project of sending out letters to all of our clients? Let's say I have 100 clients that I work with, and I intend to send out letters to 80 of them, for example. How do I orchestrate, track status? Maybe someone else in my firm prepares them and I review them, and then someone else sends them out once I've reviewed them. We've created what we call a staging screen for tax letters that allows me to list all my clients out, and then I can, on the right-hand side here, I have a status that's tracking what's going on with each of these letters. And I can, from this screen, I can click a couple here and I can say generate a zip file. And what that will do is, I'm not going to do it now, but what that'll do is it'll generate a zip file that includes each of the letters that I've selected for that client. So one example where I would use that potentially is, let's say that, let's say I have a client, let's say I have a CPA or a tax preparer in my town who works with 10 of my clients. I may have an arrangement with that tax preparer to just select those 10 clients and send them all the letters in a zip file. You can see on screen here that I could actually filter on the tax preparer. That's a column here. And then I could select all the letters for that tax preparer, put them all in a zip file, and send them. Again, that just cuts out on more of the emailing and all that stuff. And then what I can do is, here I have these guys selected, and I can say update the status now to complete and sent. And you can see on the right-hand side, they were all sent on January 13th, 2026. So why do we do these? I mean, I already mentioned the biggest reason, which is like, we're just trying to help our clients with something that's complicated. We're trying to show them that we're valuable at another point of the year. Taxes are a thing that by law your client has to do every year. It's a great touch point in the first quarter of every year where we get to remind them of how valuable we are. I think another thing that's important to remember is, a lot of times the complexity on our clients' tax returns arises out of things that we, the advisors, might have put them in. So like, your client may never have done donor advised funds before, but if we're the ones who put them in it, it's a good planning strategy. But we've added complexity to their tax situation. And so by us hand-holding them through that, we're reminding them of the value of that tax planning we did, but then we also keep it from going off the rails and something going wrong. And that's another important point, which is like, the best laid financial plans, they don't really exist until they're enshrined in the tax return itself. So we can do brilliant tax planning during the year, but if we don't let qualified charitable distribution, that's a really good strategy in a lot of cases. But if we captured it as a taxable distribution from the IRA on the tax return, it didn't happen. And so all the best laid plans went to waste. And so it's another example of where the tax letter is useful. I would say like one last thing that does come up sometimes is, there are situations where the tax preparer makes a mistake. And sometimes the tax preparer is your client, and sometimes the tax preparer is a professional. And I would just say, sometimes it's helpful to have a paper trail that says, we informed you that this was true, and so therefore, that's not on me, the advisor. That's something that was missed by the tax preparer. We hope that doesn't happen, but sometimes it happens, and when there's finger pointing, it's a way for us to say we did what we needed to do. There's a couple other things I didn't show you. One of them is, we can customize all those sections that show up in the letter. So Holistiplan provides a library of tax letter sections, but you can add your own for some, if there's something very specific you're doing, either in your location or as part of your investment strategy, you can create your own sections that you can drop into multiple letters. Again, we provide a library of sections, but if you want to edit the way we worded it, you're able to do that, override our default wordings. And then another thing that I didn't show you, but this comes up then when we actually get the tax return. So right now it's Q1, we're helping our clients file their tax returns, we're sending them tax letters. If we see that there's a tax letter on file for a given year, so I was just showing you 2025 in that example. When we get the tax return in, when you upload the return into Holistiplan for 2025, and we see that there was a 2025 tax letter, there is a section in the tax report itself that references back to that tax letter. So to use the qualified charitable distribution example, the tax report would say, this client did a QCD, And to make sure that it got captured right, be sure to look at this line of Form 1040. So you're leaving a little breadcrumb to your future self or to the paraplanner or the associate in your firm who's doing the tax return review. So it kind of allows us to kind of have this year-round system of handoffs where the tax letter informs the tax return review. The tax return review then helps you think about your tax planning for the coming year, and then your tax planning for the coming year gets enshrined in the tax letter to make sure it gets captured correctly in the tax return. And so we've cycled all the way through, and that's kind of like the circle of life for the tax planning calendar. That's an overview of tax letters. I hope you give it a shot. There's a lot of advisors, thousands of financial advisors who do these now every year. And the feedback we get is their clients are generally delighted to get them, as are tax preparers, because it just cuts out a lot of work, a lot of steps, and it's, again, a reminder to clients about what you, the financial advisor, are doing for them. You're looking out for them. You're reminding them of the good planning you did in the previous year. You're just removing stress and anxiety around taxes.